Visions of Mana is the first mainline sequel in the Mana series since Dawn of Mana, which happened in 2006, so it's been 18 years at this point. They're so happy with the response that they got from the remake of Trials of Mana that they decided they should do a proper sequel. It's the first game in the series not to have as much direct involvement from the creator of the Mana series, Koichi Ishii, though he is involved in some capacity. From what people working on the project have said, it sounds like he's overseeing the designs in some way, but it was pretty unclear what that means. It sounded like he was making sure that the designs of the monsters from the previous games match up with the monster designs of the new game. Something like that. Visions of Mana definitely gives the feeling of a Mana game at first glance. They've obviously done a lot of work in keeping the series in tune with the iconic art style that it has had since Secret of Mana. It's not an open world game, but it does have bigger regions that you explore, which is a bit of a step away from the original Mana series. Those games did have a bit of exploration, and quite a bit actually, but the actual areas tended to be kind of tight. There's also emphasis on exploration given by things you'll find. Things like hidden chests, collectibles, something similar to like a platformer, and something called elemental triggers. Elemental triggers work in a similar way to Metroidvanias, where you have to unlock the corresponding elemental vessel in order to unlock a new path. So that also extends into traversal, as you get certain abilities that allow you to explore more of the areas, such as a wind ability that lets you leap high into the sky. Speaking of traversal, in this game you'll be getting a mount, which is this large kind of dog-looking creature that you can ride called a peacock. This is going to be a lot more open than a lot of the other Mana games, like I said. It's not quite open world, it's definitely a lot more open. You can tell that there is a bit of influence from games like, the Zelda series, Tears of the Kingdom, and things like that, in that there are going to be a lot more bigger open areas. Visions of Mana also has a class system, where you unlock classes based on the elemental that you have. So each elemental can only be equipped by a single character, so you kind of have to pick and choose what class you want based on what elemental you have available. There are 8 different elementals, and each character unlocks different classes based on those elementals. A lot of the people who have played the hands-on preview of Visions of Mana have said it feels pretty simple, and the combat isn't too difficult, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's a bit more relaxed than many of the other action RPGs out there that have you like gripping your seat every time you see an enemy, things like FromSoft games, which honestly could be a good thing. Although I do really love FromSoft games, it's nice to have something that's more, laid back and relaxed that you can kick back and play through, which is pretty similar to the way that I remember Secret of Mana being. It had tough points during the game, but for the most part, it wasn't anything that had me screaming at my screen or anything like that. I replayed it over and over again with my cousins when I was a kid. I didn't end up beating the game until much later when I was an adult, but we still had a lot of fun playing it, even though we kind of replayed the beginning over and over. Visions of Mana seems like a nice middle point between those old nostalgic Super Nintendo games and something more modern, with a nice sheen of paint over the top. I will say the game looks absolutely stunning. It looks very good, so it makes me wonder how much Square Enix put into the reboot of the series. Because I think that's really what we're looking at here. Square has decided this is the time to bring it back. Depending on how well it does, this could be an entirely reborn franchise. And with this potential rebirth, we're looking at a completely new set of people working on it for the most part. Most of the people that worked on the Mana series originally have since moved on, and they're now doing other things. People like Tetsuya Takahashi, that worked on Secret of Mana, is a map designer. He's kind of now the executive director at Monolith Soft, making the Xenoblade series, so things like that. So people have definitely moved on. Visions of Mana is looking very good. The way that combat works seems a lot more dynamic and smooth than I remember Trials of Mana, even the remake being. overall impressions have been very good from a variety of different outlets during their previews. So I think it's about time that they took the Mana series back out of their labyrinth of IPs that are just sitting. This is one that particularly bothered me, not unlike, something like Breath of Fire. I think it's a perfectly solid series that really doesn't have any reason not to be used. And not just for nostalgia bait either. Not for like those mediocre mobile games that they put out, but because the IP has something special to it, something that I really think anyone can jive with. It's pretty timeless. Hopefully, this will serve to prove that a lot of these ideas are worth pursuing, and we'll be finding out very soon exactly how this game does, because it's releasing sometime in the Q2, Q3 release window, so that is the second and third quarter of the year. From what people that got the preview said, it's somewhere around June, so that is, not too long away. Though it doesn't really have a solid release date, it could, kind of release anytime in 2024, but I would expect it to be, mid-summer, somewhere around there. And I know I'll be looking forward to it for sure.